Okay, Julie, please roll call.
Rob Toyer.
Here.
Yvonne Gallardo.
Here.
Michelle Blythe.
Here.
Alicia Novak.
Here.
Jan Schweddy.
Present.
Heather Logan.
Present.
Deborah Nelson is excused.
I'd like to motion for approval of the agenda.
Second.
Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, thank you. So there's no special guests or presentations?
Yep.
Okay. We'll move on to our first workshop item, ordinance amending Chapter 8.10 of the Municipal Code regarding animal control violations. And then Chief Winchero will do the introduction.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. For those of you who may not remember, I'd like to reintroduce our newest police services officer. This is PSO Angie Yarkut. She brings a wealth of experience to our department. She's been with the Arlington Police Department for 1 year now. She comes to us with 20 years experience from Washington State Patrol as a trooper, retired. She also worked with Everett Police Department for 6 years prior to joining us. We are very thrilled to have her. Not to sound like recently elected, but she's doing a great job, very, very good job. She's a fine officer, very good addition to the department. But she really is doing an amazing job, and she has already brought a number of things to council for revision that has been presented by Paul or myself. But I thought it was a good opportunity for her to be here tonight to, one, reintroduce her to council and have the opportunity to present. Also, I will not be present next week. I will be attending a conference on the east side of the state, but she is doing this work herself, researching the ordinances. She's out in the field enforcing the laws, and has just become a very good resource and quickly becoming an expert in this field. So I'd like to give Angie the opportunity to talk about why we need this ordinance change and answer any questions for you. And with that, I'll turn this over to Angie.
I can say it for you. I can say it for you. It's Angie Yarkut. It's very weird. Yeah. As I've been here, I've just kind of slowly been going through all the animal-related code, and a few things popped out at me. Some of the code just needed updating, I think, because it had been such a long time since it had originally been written, and it kind of needed to keep up with some of the changes that are happening in the city and just in society in general, I think. The first one was, this was pretty straightforward. Our code used to read that folks could keep at their home 3 dogs, 3 cats, or any combination of the two not to exceed 7. So math was not my greatest subject, but 3 and 3 equals 6. So that was the first thing that I noticed. And just in researching some of the other jurisdictions that are close to us and similar in size, most of them don't really have code that addresses cats. They just deal with dogs. So I kind of wanted to streamline ours, take the cats out of it, and then I came up with the number 4 because that's what most of the jurisdictions in our area have in their code. So that's my update, is just a flat number of 4 dogs and taking out the cats. And then anything past the 4, then they would have to comply with kennel-related code violations. The second one just related to noisy animals, and I didn't really change anything in there. I just shortened it up a little bit, changed some of the language, and really the only major difference that I altered was originally the code said somebody could receive 1 warning from the police department within a 60-day period, and so I just changed it to 1 verbal or written warning because it wasn't very specific about the type of warning. And the third one related to dangerous dogs and our ability to euthanize a dog that has been declared dangerous, that has severely injured or killed a human being or another domestic animal. Most of our counterparts in other jurisdictions have code that specifically states that that jurisdiction has the authorization to euthanize a dangerous dog. Ours did not. Ours only stated that we could do so if the dog was at large or running loose through the city. And it didn't have any code that actually applied to most of the situations that I've dealt with so far, which have been a dog that's already contained, or it's in the person's house who owns the dog. And that's basically what I've dealt with since I've been here. So I talked to some other jurisdictions, asked them what they did as far as the ability to euthanize. Most often, a dog's owner, where the dog has severely injured or killed, usually another animal, the owner generally takes it upon themselves to take their puppy to the vet and get it euthanized on their own. But I just wanted code that allowed us to also take those measures as well. That's all I have. Yes,
Hey,
ma'am.
oh, Heather?
I think she was first. Go ahead.
Oh, this particular ordinance is for dogs.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that there are ordinances out there for the city of Arlington that cover, you can't have goats, no, or cows or
Yeah.
whatever on your, and within the city in your backyard.
There are a lot of different ordinances that apply to
Okay.
different types of animal, livestock. The chickens and roosters is a big one. Pigs,
Yes.
bees. Haven't run across any bees yet, but yes, there are.
Okay, thank you.
And my question is in 8.10.050, noisy animals.
Yes.
It is a violation when the police officer confirms the noise. Does the police officer have to witness the noise? That puts such an onus on the officer, or can the complainant record the situation?
They
and
can.
show it? Oh, they can. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
they can provide, and most often, I mean, I personally choose to go to the address and I'll sit there, and there have been a couple times when I just record it on my body camera. But yes, I have taken video or audio that somebody wants to send me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I have a question.
Yes.
I work with animal rights, and I'm on the board at NOAA, so anything with animals really concern me, and I like to make sure I have a voice on it. The number of 4, I mean, if somebody wanted to have 6, could they petition for that? If they were responsible and could take care of, I mean, there's a lot of dogs that need homes, and there's a lot of responsible people, too, that may have more than 4 dogs.
Yes, and there is in our code written that for certain time periods of time, if somebody is fostering an animal, yes, they can go above the 4. If their dog has puppies, I think it's up to the age of 3 months, 3 or 4 months, that they can have the additional number of dogs in their home, yes. And then we also have code related to operating an actual kennel facility for a large number of dogs.
So the answer would be no if somebody wanted to have 5 dogs in their home, just as their
As
own.
permanent pets, our code doesn't allow for them to do that as permanent pets, no.
I believe the county ordinance is, I think it's over 3 dogs is for a kennel license too. So it's, I think we're pretty consistent with even that.
And then who makes the decision to euthanize?
Well, it would most likely be me.
Okay, that's what I was curious. All right, thank you. Any other questions? We're good? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then next up, ordinance extending a moratorium for Island Crossing development, and that would be Marquez.
I think I'll operate from up here. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. So this evening, you've seen this ordinance for the moratorium in Island Crossing several times before. The one difference that we made in this ordinance is that we had a request to install electric vehicle chargers in Island Crossing. And so we did make a provision within the ordinance in order to allow for electric vehicle chargers to be installed during the moratorium. So, but what I wanted to do is give you an update on where we are with our sub-area plan in order to let you know why we're asking for another extension in the moratorium. So with that, I'll proceed. So our sub-area plan will identify the long-term vision for development. It's developing the SR 530 design concepts. It addresses the infrastructure needs. It does recommendations for the strategies to achieve the vision and update zoning and development standards, which would come after the sub-area plan is developed. Some of the key issues we found out there, is everyone that knows who's lived here for any amount of time, is that the area tends to be a flood zone. And so we're looking at ways in order to control floodwaters out there. We've had several strategies that I'll get to later on in this presentation to address that. You get varying opinions from people who own property out there or who have businesses out there or just people who have agricultural land. So one of the key things with this also is gateway concept. So we see Island Crossing as being a gateway into Arlington, but it's not only that, it's also a gateway across the North Cascades Highway. So this is your earliest gateway across the North Cascades. The next one would be up through Burlington and up Highway 20. So we'd like to be able to recognize that and emphasize that and kind of take advantage of this being a southern access to the North Cascades. And as always, we have identified Island Crossing as one of our focus areas. For about 10 years now, we identified that. So we're just now getting to it in order to emphasize the viability of Island Crossing itself. And then, of course, the street and infrastructure network is also important with this planning. So land use, we've had 2 meetings with our stakeholder group on land use and 2 meetings with our stakeholder group on transportation. And so we went through this, we looked at the existing businesses out there and the uses of the land. You know, as you might remember, that we had a lot of interest in building another 1, if not 2 truck stops in Island Crossing. And so we were concerned with that. That's why we initiated the moratorium in the beginning. So one of the other things I want to point out is this, is not only are we looking at the economic development of Island Crossing itself, but we're also looking at strategies in order to preserve all the agricultural land out there and make that viable from this point forward so that we don't see development pressures on the agricultural lands. As long as the agricultural community can make that pencil in crops and uses out there, there's no need to succumb to any type of other development pressures out there. And so we'd like to make sure that there's a viable method moving forward with that. Some of the potential land uses that came out of this. So we created a list of potential land uses and then we did a survey with our stakeholders group. And so some of the items that came up are grocery store and service and retail. Others were hotel use. Other uses here were the agritourism and recreational tourism, and then compensatory storage. So if you look at the top slides, those are agritourism and recreational tourism, which take advantage of the agricultural lands and the crops that could be both grown and sold out in this area. And then the recreational tourism is the bottom one here, and that kind of doubles up. So if we look at a low area that could be used for compensatory storage, it could also be used for recreational use during non-flooding times of the year. So 6 to 8 months out of the year it could be used as recreational. During flood periods, it would then be compensatory storage. Other uses, grocery store or auto dealerships. And also restaurants, and then of course the truck stops, which is what initiated this moratorium. One thing I do want to point out to you is that after Pilot was built, we changed some things in our permissible use table. So what it actually does is it allows for a major fuel stop and store and restaurant, but it does not allow for truck parking any longer. So for it to be a viable truck stop, it doesn't allow it through our permissible use. So they could come in, they could have the fuel stop, the scales, all of that, but they can't park trucks there for any period of time. So these are the items that we went through our survey. They did real-time voting on this as we brought the items up. And so you can see how this lays out here with agritourism being the number one selection, restaurants, retail, and then hotels follow suit after that. So I want you to notice that on the bottom here with the compensatory storage, that no one taking the survey bought into the compensatory storage idea. So it was kind of interesting. You know, we presented to them, if you took all the agricultural land, lowered it by a foot across 300-400 acres, that you would have all compensatory storage out there to take care of any type of flooding. But the agricultural community did not like that idea. So that was our first strategy. The next strategy after that was to do it on a case-by-case basis on each individual property. So these are the things I want to kind of point out here. This is the existing zoning. So if you look at this, this is what's allowable. This meets our buildable lands and doesn't change anything from its current configuration and zoning out there. Second option is this, where we actually kind of divided things up and made areas where we would have out along the freeway, that's where your hotels and restaurants would be. And then in A, that's where the selection there was that that would be all for agritourism. So you would incorporate that with some restaurant use as well. And then C area would be for car dealerships and equipment sales in that area along Smoky Point Boulevard. And then option 3 was this, where we, same thing, we limited the uses in the subzones in here. But the one thing that's different with this is that we looked at Zone A as a public-private partnership. So when I showed you the recreational and the compensatory storage fields out there, that would be something that the city could be involved in, apply for grants in order to put that into some type of conservancy. So the property owner realizes the value of the property through that conservancy, and it retains that property in perpetuity. So environmentally, we looked at how the impacts are on Island Crossing and all the surrounding property out there. And this is a flood modeling, and this is pretty important. So as you look at it, the blues are the deepest. So the deeper the blue, the deeper the water. And it also shows you what the concurrent or the current flooding conditions are and where the water is. When you get into the reds and yellows, This is with climate change, and so that shows you in the future where you will have flood areas created because of higher volumes of precipitation in this area. So, you know, what's being impacted now is on the north side of 530. What will be impacted in the future is everything on the south side of 530. That's without any development. That's just what happens with climate change. So we looked at compensatory storage, as I pointed out. We looked at doing a broad spread area up in the area that's identified as B, where you would take that agricultural land, lower the elevation, but it still could be farmed. So it would flood, but it could still be farmed, and it would be a storm drainage. Compensatory storage and perpetuity is what we tried to do. So it was a win-win for the property owners and for the farming community. They didn't buy into that. So we looked at other areas here. A is where we ended up next on our list of things to do. So that is where you have properties out along the north side of 530. If they were to redevelop in there, then they would have to create compensatory storage on their property, which is about a 50% loss of that property. So if they built something new there, half of that property would have to be compensatory storage. And then, of course, with C, we looked at some other areas. We looked at where the existing pilot compensatory storage is and another parcel next to that, and whether or not we could lower the elevation of the pilot compensatory storage and utilize one of the other parcels adjacent to it in order to create that compensatory storage area. As part of our planning of this for transportation, we looked at the issues out there with access onto these properties and the danger that occurs out there. If anybody's spending any time out there, you'll notice that people love to use the center turn lane as what I call as a suicide lane. They'll jump in that, they'll run down it at 25, 30 miles an hour and then dive into another location along the highway there. So we want to make sure we can eliminate that, minimize the access points along this, and change the configuration and design of the roadway. One of the other things we want to do is make sure that we have pedestrian and bike facilities out there as well, so that that ties in with future development of the highway itself coming into Arlington and Smoky Point Boulevard. I do want to point something out, and I don't know if everybody's aware of this, but when you look at average daily trips on 530 and compare those with average daily trips on 531, 172nd, they are neck and neck. You have the same volumes occurring there that you do out on 172nd. So the next thing we went through with the transportation committee is this. We went through the street concepts for this stretch of 530. Option one were the frontage roads, where we'd actually have a drop lane and had a frontage road that ran the entire length of the properties on both the north and the south sides of 530. Option two is the consolidated driveways, where we would actually have a through lane each direction, both east and west. And then you would have turn pockets to consolidated driveways. So we would pick up 2 or 3 properties and have one driveway entrance to serve those properties. So that's what this is showing you an example of. So this is the frontage road. If you look, you have a lane going each direction, both east and west. The drop lane is then on the outside of that. Some of the issues with that, it's difficult to build this unless you're doing it all at once. It's hard to piecemeal this in to get those drop lanes in with this type of configuration. That gives you an example of what we were looking at. So this is planned to have 3 roundabouts in this area. The easternmost one, what ties in Smoky Point Boulevard, another one at midpoint, right where the pilot entrance is at, and then the third is at the northbound interchange of I-5 there, so the northbound on-ramp and off-ramp are at that location. Our transportation plan also shows one on the west side of I-5 as well to do the same thing as the east side, so. And that'll be on the updated one, so just to let everybody know, there is a fourth roundabout plan for this location. Here's the concept I was telling you about the consolidated driveways. So you have a lane in each direction and then the turn pockets where the driveways are being placed. Both these plans have both a center median, full median, and this one is nicer because it also has this outside planting area, which would be utilized for storm drainage for the roadway itself. One thing we are looking at, in order to be able to help the existing flooding out there, is that the culvert that goes under 530 right now that comes across right where Pilot's at is undersized, and it gets clogged up because it is so undersized. So you like, one thing I don't know if anybody's noticed it, when the pumpkin sales are going on out there and then it floods, all the pumpkins go to that location because that's the outlet of the fields on the north side. So that gets clogged, it comes up above the elevation of the highway and breaches over the highway. So we're looking at plans in order to be able to increase that size in there. It would actually take something in the way of I will give you an example of a bridge or a large structure in the highway itself in order to be able to move that water sufficiently across that. So this is showing you, I don't know if the little pointer works on this, yeah. So this shows you where these driveways are consolidated for this property, another driveway there for that property, that one, and of course the same on the other side. So those are the turn pockets that would be created to come off of 530 and get into those. And then of course you can come back out, hit the roundabout and reverse your course, so. And through the transportation committee that we've formed with stakeholders, this is the preferred option moving forward, is the consolidated driveways. The nice thing about this is it can be done on a piecemeal basis. So as a property develops or redevelops, they can install that frontage and do that. Gives you much more viability for transition between the existing highway and the property itself. So it's gives you a transitional area, so you're not at a fixed elevations that you have to match. And this is from our last meeting here, so this gives you an idea of where we went through and evaluated the designs and the notes that came out of that. So, any questions?
Thank you, Mark. Heather?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mark, how good has the stakeholder, which I assume means property owner, how good has the input been? Has it just been a couple, or have they all been coming?
We've had about 8 people involved, and property owners and out there.
And how many
That's
properties?
not everyone for
Yeah.
sure, but they've been given notice to be able to attend the meetings.
Okay.
But we do have 8 or 9 of the property owners that have been actively involved in this.
Okay. What is the next step? I understand you're asking us for another moratorium to run through, I forget what it says, June, 6 more months? Do you just need to wrap up all this planning so that you can move into preparing documents for bidding on this?
Well, there's no bidding, so I'll have a draft plan next month in December. So the draft plan, we'll look at that. It'll go through Planning Commission, it'll come back to you in order to get our final draft plan, which then will be sometime in February. So we'll be looking at that for adoption of the sub-area plan, and then we'll move forward with all the design standard work after that. And we also budgeted for looking at doing more modeling for the stormwater out there as well.
So the moratorium will extend beyond the period where the design standards are being done, is that correct?
Correct.
Could we lift the moratorium early if needed?
We could.
And when this plan is done and the design standards are done and Planning Commission and Council has blessed whatever the final outcome is, then the property owners are free to pursue sale of their properties to build. agritourism and hotels and stuff.
Correct.
Okay.
Once we identify that, what the uses are, where they'll be located, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All right, next up, and I guess for the rest of the meeting, we have Jim Kelly. Resolution adopting the 6-year transportation improvement plan.
I'm going to leave that up. There is a map. I don't have a presentation. See if you have any questions, unless you want me to go over all 32. Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. This item before you is adoption of the City of Arlington 6-year Transportation Improvement Plan. Washington state law requires that a city adopt a 6-year transportation improvement plan to show planned projects and funding sources to demonstrate that the city is actively following regional transportation improvement program as well as a local transportation improvement program. This one that is before you tonight is for the years 2025 through 2030. What was attached in your packet was a list of all the projects in a spreadsheet format, a copy of the map, a list of the projects that we've completed over the past 3 years, and in that it includes the projects that have come off the list. This year we added 2 new projects to that project list, and both of those projects are not city CIP projects, those are developer-funded projects. We have to include developer-funded projects, or projects that are to be developer-funded, to demonstrate that these projects are critical to our transportation needs for the city. And then that way they can be borne on the developers as part of their putting their development in Arlington. And then we also included a narrative of all the transportation projects. So with that, instead of me going over all the projects, what I'm going to do is open it up and see if anybody has questions about any of these projects.
Jan?
Yeah. Under the very first one, pavement preservation, is that where West Avenues is included? I mean, I didn't see it and all that.
The pavement preservation program is an annual program that we perform every year. We did not perform a pavement preservation program in 2024 because we lost several engineers from the engineering department and we just didn't have enough staff to do it. We were overwhelmed with projects. The 2024 project has been moved forward and it's going to be the 2025 project, but yes, that includes West Avenue.
Okay, excellent. I want to make a statement, guys. I've been working with transportation all across Western Washington, and I want to thank you for the job that you and your staff did on all the information you gave us. All the cities are not doing that. Please trust me, they are not. And one of the things that impressed me most, all of us out there, if we were to be asked, what is the one thing our citizens ask us most about? And it's always transportation. Somewhere, it doesn't make any difference where or what or how minor, but that's what they ask. And so I really encourage everyone to read all these, highlight the ones that you know people are asking you about, and then the fact that you added all the projects that's been done in the last 6 years was just superb, because so many times, you know, I can tell a road's been fixed because the pavement is dark and it's been painted, you know. But to have a list, and especially when, like I say, people ask all the time and say things, and then, but they don't go on all the roads, so they don't know if it's been fixed or not. But all of that information, and I read every single bit of it, was incredible. And I definitely want you and your staff to know how much it's appreciated, and the fact that every city does not do this, not even the big ones that have tons of people in the departments and Yeah, so thank you very much for all of this. Appreciate that.
I am just the presenter, just so you know, and it takes a Public Works team, and there's one of our team members right there.
Yeah, I know. I did say staff.
Heather?
Jim, item 43 caught my eye because I thought that project was not going to happen. It says 68th Avenue from Woodlands Way to 188th Street Northeast, developer-driven and funded project. I thought the homeowners association had declined to move forward with that. Could you straighten me out?
That is a developer-funded project, and yes, they did decline right now. However, we do want to keep it on our list as a viable project,
Oh, okay,
if it does go forward.
okay.
Because once the development goes in and it's completed, that people will then realize the need
The
for
traffic
having this
pattern there.
this connector road that we need to have.
Okay, thank you.
No other questions? Jan?
I just want to say one thing. If you look at Transportation Policy Board that's meeting on Thursday, 180th is listed in there.
The 180th connector,
Yes.
get us some construction funding.
Yeah, there was just two.
The construction, we applied for a $5 million grant. They only had so much money, so we went on the contingency list.
Right. But you're on, at least on it.
Good.
Good, Jan?
Yeah, I'm good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. And Jim, sole source resolution for lift station pumps. Next one on our agenda.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. The city of Arlington, we use a lot of automated controls to run our plants. That's our old 1924 plant that we demoed this year was all clipboards and hand-turn valves. We now have computer systems that control everything from in our wastewater treatment plant, our water reclamation facility, our water treatment plant, our booster pump stations, and our lift stations. And what we do is we stay with a consistent type of controller so we don't have to buy different controllers, Mitsubishis or, other ones. So we stay with Rockwell controllers. And Rockwell makes an Allen Bradley controller. They're foolproof, they last a long time, and they are a very common brand. So there's only one company that services and sells the Allen Bradley parts, and that is North Coast. So we would like to get a sole source authorization so that we can just go directly to North Coast and buy the Allen Bradley products and the Rockwell products, Rockwell automation products that we need for our facilities, new and replacement facilities.
All right. Questions? Comments? I automatically looked at Jan, so. All right, so we're good on number 4. All right, Jim, next one, authorization to apply for drinking water state revolving fund grants.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. The city is chasing down some grant funding, and the applications must be approved by council for us to submit them. So this is going through the State Drinking Water Revolving Fund. I'm sorry, the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, SRF. And we're coming to you now because the grants are due by the end of this month, and we won't have another time to bring them forward to you. So we're looking for pre-authorization to submit these grants. One grant will be for assistance with our lead line replacement program, and that has been a mandate by the federal government that has been passed down by the state government that we analyze and determine if we have any lead water lines in our system. We have been able to determine that there is no water mains that are lead, no city service lines that are lead, and we've got pretty much all but about 800 residential service lines determined that they're not lead just by doing records research. One person that's been working on it, Mike Wolonek, guarantees that he could find the rest of them if given enough time. However, we don't have enough time. We have to provide the information. So this is a grant to request funding to assist with, get a consultant on board, a contractor, to go out and make contact with the neighbors, dig up their service line, determine its material, and then bury the hole and report back to us. The second one is for a construction loan program so that we can pre-purchase the 2 filters that we need for our water treatment plant expansion project. These take a long time to manufacture. It's a 16-month project just to get them delivered to us. So we want to have them available, that they will be installed just when the new plant expansion is needed. So those are the 2 grants that we will be submitting, and I hope somebody from the SRF is listening, and we've made contact with them, so they know they're coming.
Any questions, comments? All right. All right, Jim, final item on the agenda, low bid award for 74th Trail Project.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. The city of Arlington applied for a grant to complete a trail that we started on Arlington Valley Road and extend it north 4,000 feet so that it connects into 204th Street. We received the grant. We had a portion of the grant that was for design. We took the project through design and through bidding, and we received our bids this week. Or I'm sorry, we received our bids last week. There were a total of 10 bids received. The low bidder was Reese Construction in the amount of $1,280,423. And they have not been qualified yet, but this is just the apparent low bid. So this is the low bid. Next week, when we come forward, they would have been qualified. Linda's working on all of them, and we will, if Reese does deem to be qualified, which they will, we're going to recommend that we award the project to them.
Heather,
Jim, I see on the cab that it says the budgeted amount is $650,000. And these bids, even the low bid, are double that. What's the difference between what the cab says and what the bids are?
Well, part of it's supposed to be funded in 2024, and part of it's supposed to be funded in 2025 because it was wrapping over as a 2-year project. But this project is getting started so late that we won't probably get any money spent on this project, so we're going to have to adjust our budget next year.
So the $650,000 was for 2024?
That's correct.
Right, it's already the middle of November?
Yeah, so-
Okay, so then for 2025, it would be $1.3 million, which
That's correct.
is very competitive with how the bids came in.
Yes.
Okay, and then under the DBE form, 2 of the bidders have X's. Does that automatically disqualify them?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Sometimes people, when they're reviewing bids, they will go through that, but with 10 bids, it takes forever. We'd be there an hour. So we just open the bid, announce the name of the company, announce the name of their bid, and then let everybody know that they will be qualified and that this bid tab sheet will be posted. So this is already posted. So the 2 companies that are on that list that have X's, they already know that they've been disqualified.
Jan.
Oh, I just kind of have a off question. You list 191st there, and I know that on Airport Boulevard, there are several roads that are coming out of, say, the Gateway Business Park and other ones there that are developer funded. And at some point, people will be driving through there, is that correct? I mean, right now, Gateway has all the construction in the middle of their property, so I'm sure you can't go from 67th to Airport or to Arlington Valley Road, but at some point that will happen? And will it happen
I-
after we get 74th in?
So whether you can cross over from Arlington Valley Road to 67th Avenue, there's a train track in there, and that's a private crossing. So it's not, I don't know whatever happened to that, if it was ever opened up for the public, or if that's just going to remain.
It's still private.
It's still-
We would have to exchange it for a public crossing.
Yes, so you won't ever be able to go across Northwest Hardwoods. The old former Northwest Hardwoods, the gateway site from
Oh, really?
67th.
Okay.
So you access it off of Arlington Valley Road, or you access it off of 67th Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you so much, Jim.
thank you very much.
All right, Paul? Do you have anything for us?
Nothing else this evening.
Anyone from council? Yvonne?
I just want to give a shout out to the Stilly Valley Chamber and invite everybody, or remind everybody, that tomorrow's the morning, I'm pretty sure tomorrow's the morning mingle at 7:30 at Rodeo Lounge. So come on out and do the Rise and Shine networking event. And then also thanks to everybody who helped coordinate the Heroes Among Us. It was a really nice event. It was down in Linwood at the district, and it was really neat to hear the stories and be able to catch up with other veterans and hear just some stories about our past and things that happened. And it's always one of those things you kind of forget, the emotional part of it. And so just thank you to everybody who was involved with that. It was a really great tribute and a great lunch. And then just some exciting news coming from, if nobody's heard, YMCA purchased Fort Casey, and so that's kind of cool. So anybody who's got littles and kids that Fort Casey, YMCA purchased that, and seeing that expansion is really cool, I think, for our community, and being able to have that growth and new camps coming. So yeah, and then United Way did a really good overview of their services, and so thank you to everybody who was involved in doing that United Way update. They recorded it and it's on LinkedIn, so if anybody wants to see that too, that was a really good overview of what services they have, the downgrades that they've had to do because of COVID, and unfortunate, everybody had to downgrade in some ways, and their budget went from millions and millions of dollars to I think now they're like a quarter of what they used to be, but it's still pretty interesting to see where they're at and that they're growing and they're expanding and they're very interested to still be a part of the community. So if anybody wants to reach out to them too, they're here for us.
Thank you, Yvonne. Anybody else? Public comment? Doesn't look like there's anyone out there. I know. Oh, consent agenda. What do we want on the agenda for next week?
3, 4, and 5. And then 4 and 5 for sure, yeah. Say it again?
We have to have a public hearing on the TIP, so we can't do that. Won't be that one then. So 4 and 5.
4 and 5. We can't do one yet.
One.
Yeah.
Okay.
Two.
Same thing, we're holding off people from selling their property, I think we should vote.
Okay, sounds good.
Good try, Leisha.
That's why I'm curious. Like,
Yeah.
I want to ask.
Yeah.
So what did?
All right, so 4 and 5? We all agree on that? All right. And there's no executive session. And that's a wrap.
I motion to,
Adjourn. Second.
motion to adjourn the meeting.
Question?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, sorry. Have a lovely night.